Welcome to Quantum Leap. I believe we are live with David and Cory, and got a bit of a new setup today, so kind of working a few of the kinks out. Let's see if I'm even on camera. Okay. Well, I'm going to get started here. Let me just try to switch this to gallery view. I don't know what this thing's doing. Okay. Well, I guess we'll go with it here. Today we're going to be talking about the Thought Leader program. And, we have 2 sessions left after this. But first, I just wanted to have Cory introduce himself. And Cory, let me know if you have any tech issues. I see you on camera, but I can't put us in the boxes. It's like different than it normally is. Oh, there we go.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, I'm Cory and I, and I am co-owner of Take Wing Coaching, and I do business coaching, especially for partnerships.
Okay, welcome. Well, good to be here with a new setup, and I'm excited to really go through the rest of this program. I realize we can't really get to everything in the Thought Leader, and I'm not really trying to. I'm really just trying to tease some of the key segments. But if you haven't joined us before, it's really inspired by the thought of Bruce Lee and Shannon Lee. And Bruce Lee was really a cultural icon. And if you really look at him, what really stood out to me was the results that he got in his life. And he had a shorter life. He died at 32, but he really lived more than a lot of folks live in their whole lifetime in terms of his success. Was really because of how he thought. And that's why I think this program is so powerful, that a lot of his thought system was developed for martial arts, but it really turned out to be a lot more than that. And the best book to review to kind of get up to speed on that is the Be Water, My Friend by Shannon Lee. And that's incredible. And actually the modules we're going to go over today are, well, with the exception of the first one, are taken out of that book. I kind of fill in the program with some other timeless concepts that Cory and I have developed. And the first one we're going to talk about is vision. And this is really kind of Cory's specialty, and a lot of my thoughts on vision I got from him. But Bruce was big on vision too. I would say that, Cory, you have more of a system down for how to help people with their vision, whereas Bruce was a lot of focus on his vision. I'll just say, just set up a little bit about what this module is. It's really the first step to creating anything great is to create in your own mind what you want to accomplish. It has to, so it's really created twice, in your mind first and then in reality. And we talked about the empty cup analogy last week, that sometimes we have to empty our mind of other things that are kind of maybe limiting beliefs. Like maybe you had a belief that you shouldn't have a vision, that your life should just be run by other people. And to really get to a constructive vision for you, you have to get rid of that thought. So and really this vision, I think, takes some time, because you got to clear out some of that garbage first in your mind about that are holding you back. And I actually went through this process with Cory and my old business coach as well, and we're going to talk to Cory about it here. But I wanted to kick it back to you, Cory, about just this importance of vision and how do you go about constructing a vision for your future. And I know we're really business based on this show, but so you're kind of life and business are almost one in a lot of ways. But how do you get started there? And feel free to share some of your own journey as well.
It's the idea that we all have ideas of what we want in the future. Some people are maybe more present oriented. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are typically more future oriented, but that's not always true. And so it's really looking forward, projecting what the ideal future looks like, and than putting it in a present mode, right? So we're kind of putting ourselves into the future as we would like it to be. And so the more you do that, the more it manifests, right? There's this sort of, they talk about the law of attraction and various other things, and that's what you're doing. You're just attracting that to you. If you have dreams, we talk about bringing dreams into reality, and that's what a vision does. Um, you can the importance of that, of course, is that if we don't have the vision, it's hard to set goals, it's hard to really plan for the future, it's hard to manifest those things that you say that you want. So by putting them into the vision, you're making that become more of a reality. And the more constructed is that vision, the more it is likely to manifest. So the process that I usually take people through is to just start getting stuff on paper. And there's a number of questions that we go through that relate to business and life and clients and people and family and friends and every aspect of what's going on, and then flesh those out even further. It's a process of journaling, it's a process of kind of imagining it as reality. It's a little bit of fiction, right? If you're but you don't have to be a creative writer for this. It doesn't hurt, but it allows you to be creative in your own way. And the more you put into it, the more it blows up into reality. And in my experience, it works, because we just move towards the direction that we keep our sights on, right? And that's what a vision is. It's this thing that we're looking for in the future. We bring it to the present, and so our mind is always on it. And it starts to manifest. As many years ago, Gail and I did our vision, and one of them was to have a retreat center on the coast, and we had plans for a lot of travel and a small farm and things like that, and that was all part of our business, and to have other coaches. And while it didn't manifest exactly the way we planned it, it really did happen that we wound up moving out to the coast for 4 years. We lived in the woods. We had those things that we wanted to do. And of course, we had a surprise along the way with Kaden. And so we've just worked her into our vision as well. And honestly, I think we need to actually go back and revisit our vision, because it's been a while, and that needs to be done more often.
Yeah, that was my next question, but I first wanted to add that you can actually work with partners or people right now if they want to work on their vision. You also have some great modules on Lift, your online coaching platform. If somebody wanted to get started with their vision today, just go to Take Wing Coaching and sign up for the Lift platform. And I did all that work, and it's immensely valuable. But I was, I need to redo my vision too, because as you go through life, you got to recalibrate. And how often do you think we should redo our vision, and how do you go about that?
I think it should be done fully revamped every year. It should be reviewed regularly every week. We always encourage people to read it to themselves, because that is, people who do affirmations, it really is just one big affirmation, by putting it into reality. And there's a process to it that the way I do it and the way I have people do it is to make it a present tense vision. Like, this is what I am doing now. And even though it's not actually happening in the present, your mind really cannot, your subconscious mind cannot differentiate between reality and what you tell it. So if you tell it that's reality, then it starts to create that reality. And it crowds out all those negative thoughts and negative thinking, which will immediately come back. But the affirmation process that a vision is, helps crowd that out, keeps that from being the dominant pattern that runs you.
Great. And we're going to move on to the second module for today, which is called the Eternal Student. And there's a great chapter in Be Water, My Friend by Shannon Lee on Bruce's thought about this. And it's something we've talked about on this show, being the eternal student. And I think, Bruce argues that we all hit plateaus, but we got to keep pressing through. And I think a lot of this comes from more knowledge. Like, if we hit a barrier that we can't overcome, oftentimes getting additional knowledge and creativity is the way to getting through that. So, and I'll just read a quote from him. My life, it seems, is a life of self-examination, a self-peeling of myself bit by bit, day by day. More and more it's becoming simple to me as a human being. More and more I search myself, and more the questions become listed, and more I see clearly. I'm happy because I'm growing daily and honestly don't know where my ultimate limit lies. To be certain, every day there can be a revelation or a new discovery that I can obtain. Remember, I am no teacher. I can merely be a signpost for a traveler who is lost. It is up to you to decide the direction. All I can do is offer an experience, but never a conclusion. So even what I've said needs to be thoroughly examined by you. I might be able to help you discover and examine your problem by awakening your awareness. A good teacher, a good teacher, this is functions as a point to truth, but not a giver of truth. Sorry, I kind of miswrote that, but if you have any reaction to that, I do think it really is a journey, and we never quite know where it's going to take us.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think this is the idea of lifelong learning is something. It's true of, again, many entrepreneurs and many individuals. Um, so you're asking more about kind of like doing this as part of business development. And I think everybody kind of approaches it their different way. I've not been a heavy reader of fiction. I tend to absorb the information that's brought to me by other people who do that and distill it, or I find the distillation. But um, I read a lot of other things that are more related to thinking and the mind, and so I bring that to part of it. And I think aspiring business leaders, they should figure out what it is that they're really interested in and go through a study of that. But for me, I think the most effective thing has actually been personal development courses with other people. So coaching, um, either individual or in groups. I think groups are better because people tend to reflect um, more than a coach can, right? We as coaches, we can help people kind of overcome what's going on internally, and guide them to draw upon the resources. But sometimes in a group, it gives us more time to see what's going on in other people while we examine our own internal stories and patterns. So I say, really stick to both. And Don Lyons had, was one who kind of inspired me in that direction, and her take was always to spend 10% of all of your revenues on working on yourself. And we have stuck to that rule, if not more in some cases. And it's incredible, right? It's even if you find out what you really truly want and where it is that you're getting stuck. And I think that's really the self-guided um, examination, and then everything else is just development of your business according to what you're looking for.
Yeah, well put. I love that 10% of what you earn going into self-development. And you really see it in Mike and Don. It's incredible the knowledge they have. And, I think that's powerful what you said about joining a group of people, because, as a professor, I find we almost learn more from each other than we do from the teacher. Of course, a good teacher facilitates that. And
Right.
going to, Bruce, and, he was a teacher of his martial arts forms, and that's how you really learn about the ideas, is by being able to teach it. But we learn so much from each other, watching other people, how they do things. So whatever you're into, go find a group that you can be part of and learn from that. And like you said, you took that public speaking course, or now you're in provisors. So it's really kind of constructing our own path and finding the groups that agree with us. I'm just seeing if I'm going to move on to the last piece here, called I'll just end with another quote on this by Bruce, saying, learning is discovery. And this is collected by Shannon Lee in that book, Be Water. Learning is discovery, the discovery of the cause of our ignorance, It is discovering is there in us. When we discover, we are uncovering our own abilities, our own eyes, in order to find our potential, to see what is going on, to discover how to enlarge our lives, to find means at our disposal to help us cope and grow. Don't be in a hurry to fix things, rather enrich your understanding in the ever-going process of discovery and find more of the cause of your ignorance. So, I just find this keeps us going. If we get stuck, a lot of times we're not learning, we're just frustrated. But trying to reach out and find new ways is invigorating for me. And it's a way to kind of break through barriers and ways that are holding us back. So I just, in the interest of, if you have a quick comment, feel free to make it, but I'll just move on to the last.
Yeah, no, nothing on that. No.
Okay. So the last segment here is on this, this is one of the most innovative areas of his thought, because I think it's so contrary to what we're taught. And this comes from the empty cup. And Bruce Shannon Lee dubs this the non-competition model. And I think we see some of this in BNI, which is why BNI is such a unique organization. I think there's a lot of competition in our society about pitting each other against each other, and so much negative comes of this. But this is really a breath of fresh air for me, and I'll just read a few quotes from about what this non-competition model is. This may sound strange, but Bruce Lee did not believe in competition. I mentioned earlier that he believed in fighting for real and that he didn't compete in the competitions of the day. But he came to the idea later in life that competition in general was not the correct model for personal or spiritual growth, or martial arts press for that matter. To compete is to be bound up and focused on what is happening outside of yourself. Are you trying only to best someone else or win the prize? Or are you interested in your own process of growth? Competition categorizes everything and everyone into winners and losers rather than collaborators and co-creators. It separates us from self and it pits us against one another, states Shannon Lee. Our potential can never be fully realized in competition because instead of thoroughly observing ourselves and maximizing the creation of our own experience, we focus on winning at all costs. We may spend hundreds of hours breaking down another's performance in order to best it while learning only very limited information about ourselves. And in this model, the information we do learn is grounded in what others have that we lack, rather than about what we possess that makes us who we truly are. And, I say this is, powerful stuff. And, if you look at Bruce, you see it in his thought that, I also think even in great fighters, you see this, that when they're training for a fight, it might partially be about that other fighter, how you can win, but it's really about, finding our own potential, and you're not going to find that in competition. So, there's kind of a lot to discuss here, but I was just going to see if we could maybe link this back to BNI a little bit, which does have some elements of competition, in the marketplace. But as business owners, how can we avoid getting sucked into this idea of competition and develop a system where we kind of, compete against ourselves, so to speak?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that. I think I'm not, my particular emotional behavioral style isn't really typically very competitive, but I can be a little bit competitive. I think that, there's some people who like competition. They like to measure themselves against others as a means to improve themselves. And, but I don't think that's necessarily the only way to go about it. And one of the benefits of having say like a BNI without the competition is people can feel comfortable that they're not threatened, like they have to explain why they're better than the other person in the room. You still have to, right? There's still an element of that. You're still competing with all the people outside the room who provide your service. It's just you have an opportunity to really build that relationship with others that without feeling that threat, right? So if you have a plumber in your chapter and he's still competing with Yelp, I can still go to Yelp and find a great plumber. But the great thing about the plumber in my chapter is I can get to know him and feel like, I see him face to face, and other people say great things about him. So in some ways, he's stepping ahead of the competition through those relationships. And that's, I think, the great benefit of it. At the same time, when we start feeling threatened by people eating at that, it's a good thing to question yourself, right? What is really threatening me? Where do these stories coming from? Because that's usually what it is, right? I feel like that person is doing a little bit of what I do, and therefore it's a threat. And it's like, well, am I, is that something I really want? Is that something I really need? Can we work together? Can we collaborate? Or maybe I should be more focused on, what it is that I bring. And I feel that too, as a business coach, even though I do, I'm focusing now just strictly on partnerships, because sometimes I feel like, oh, there's other coaches in the room and they do what I do. And honestly, I just step out of that and say, there's something unique about what I do, and the way I do it that nobody else can do. And I think that's true of a lot of us in a lot of our situations. So that's also something, Bruce, he had his own unique way of going about doing things. And that really, a lot of times when people compete, it's like you got to follow a system and do things this way. And so it locks you into a track, which when you're free, when you compete with only kind of your own self, it's you can find your own way. I heard a great line recently I really like, and I kind of apply it more to personal development, even though that's out of context, but it was, as a life, in life, as in sports, the boos come from the cheap seats. And so I feel like that's kind of the same as that sort of, all that negative voices going on in the back of our head, that they come from different places and different parts of our life. Is usually the people are trying to pull us down. And when we get into a competition mode, sometimes we tear ourselves down. And so even though competition can be very good in some contexts, it's not necessarily good. Even people like competition don't necessarily like it in every context. It's like, okay, I'm going to run a triathlon. I want to compete against other people so I can improve myself, but that doesn't mean I want to compete in my business. I don't want to be in a room full of my competitors and have to stand out among them when I'm just trying to grow my business. So, yeah, there's different contexts too.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, and we are pretty much at time here, that that really, we got to find our niche, so to speak, and that doesn't come in competition. That's, so many people view things in the competitive mindset. So I think, they ask, well, what makes you different from other videographers or business coaches? So much of the frames are competitive, but I think just by studying this non-competition model, that once you just see the cracks in the
Right.
competition model, that's kind of sets you on a new path, so to speak, that competition isn't everything. It's, there is, so.
Yeah, and I think that's it's kind of going back to vision too. Is a lot of that feeling of competition and fear of it is coming from scarcity, right? So there's other people in the room who are doing what I do, and or something close to it, and it's more about the scarcity. Like, I don't have enough, or I don't feel like I have enough. So the question really should be asking is, what would it take to have enough, and can I get it even though these other people are competing with me? And so what do I need to do to change it myself? If I externalize it, then it becomes all their fault. But I think what we're talking about is internalizing it. Just ignore that there's competition and get better. It's like watching, I watched that one thing where Bruce went to a master of a certain style. I mean, this guy was incredibly, skilled, and he, beat Bruce to a pulp. And, then Bruce went back and said, I want you to train me in what you're doing, and then I'm going to beat you at it. And it's not so much a competition. It's just like, I'm going to, you're amazing. I'm going to learn this thing. And rather than feeling threatened by it, like it's your fault that you beat me, it's more like it's my fault that I couldn't do it because I believed I could, but you are actually better than me. So now I want to do what you do. So that was a really good scene. I don't know, remember what that is, but you played.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, we're going to return to this. This is powerful stuff. And we're going to get to our surprise visionary business leader here and sign off this first segment. Thanks for joining us.